In this video, I want to talk about Royce's ethics of loyalty and its relationship to the family, as well as political or social organizations. So let's start with the family. Royce says that our first natural opportunity for loyalty comes from the family. This is our first entrance into loyalty. This is when we first start to learn about loyalty and when we have an experience of it. So let's just say that we're born to two parents. We have an opportunity to be loyal to some cause that they present to us, whether it be the continued endurance of the family or care of another family member or some tasks that are required as a part of being in the family unit. So this is the first entrance we have or experience we have with being moral for Royce. Now, one thing to point out is that at least nowadays, people will say that there is this breakdown of the family unit. This first entrance that many people have in order to be loyal is deteriorating in some significant way. Now, it's sometimes not quite clear what exactly it means when people say there is a breakdown of the family unit. On the one hand, they can mean there's a more single parent families, and in particular, it means that there are more families where children are raised without fathers. And at least according to one statistic that I looked at, this seems to be the case. In the 1960s, about 9% of children were raised without a father. And by 2018, 25% of children are raised without a father. Sometimes this claim, there's a breakdown of the traditional family unit, can refer to a different claim. And that claim is that more children are born outside of marriage. So let's say I have a partner and we have a child, but we're not married. We might nevertheless raise the child as a two-parent household, but we aren't actually married in that household. So people propose many different causes for the breakdown of the family unit. I don't know how convincing all of them are, but I'm just going to give you a list from at least one article that I saw on this topic. The causes for why there's this breakdown might be greater participation in the women in the workplace, there's changing social norms, there's fewer employment opportunities for low-income males, and the one that seems to be suggested quite a bit has to do with the expansion of welfare system. In particular, there are seemingly these rules that benefit single-parent households. So the social structure is in place, the social economic structure is in place that also almost encourages individuals not to have a father in the house. And so there's this reference to these no man in the house rules that your benefits might be reduced if you're running a two-parent household. I haven't checked into any of this. This is just my reporting on some articles that I read. And I actually haven't reviewed the quality of those articles that I read. This is just these are some things that people say. I'm not saying that any of them are true. But besides this claim that you hear and that people make about the breakdown of the family, there are other ways that the family unit has changed over time. These are some that Royce actually refers to here, which is the family has become less patriarchal. What this means, it's not run in a hierarchical fashion where the father is the sort of leader of the family, and then it's sort of power is distributed between the mother and the children. So the family is more egalitarian in the sense that the parents run the family on more even footing than just the father alone. Children are also taken to be more individualistic. They're no longer simply taken to be focused on serving the family unit, and they no longer feel bound by it. There are no longer any, at least in the United States, arranged marriages. So how the family is created is a little bit different. And divorce legislation seems more permissive than it did probably in the 19th century. There's also a stigma associated with being divorced than there was. Royce contends that this family unit is morally significant. And the reason he says this is because these natural family ties, this opportunity that you have for loyalty, is your first entrance into it. It's your first introduction to it. And the family unit is itself an important thing because it gives you an opportunity to be loyal. And so for Royce, it gives you an opportunity to be moral. Royce writes that fidelity and family devotion are amongst the most precious opportunities and instances of loyalty. And so, if you think about the family unit as furnishing an opportunity for loyal, it gives you an opportunity to be moral, it gives you an opportunity to be good, then changes to this family unit can be good or bad based upon how they impact your opportunity for loyalty. So, if you have this great opportunity for loyalty and you change it such that you no longer have as great an opportunity for loyalty, this would be bad. It would be a bad change, at least for Royce, according to his loyalty ethics. But if you were to change how we understand and interact with family members or the family unit and it gives you more opportunities for loyalty, then he would say, of course, this is a good thing. So, okay, if the family unit is our first entrance to loyalty, it's the first natural opportunity we have to be loyal. And there are these destruction of the family unit or changes to this family unit, then we can think about these deliberate changes from a moral perspective in that we want this new way of thinking about the family of parents and children interacting with each other. If we want to change it in a way that gives more opportunities to be moral or protect against the chances that it's going to decrease loyalty in the world. On the other hand, if we're going to break down or dissolve the family unit, then those changes should be such that they give individuals more opportunities for loyalty. We should be trying to break the aspects of the family unit that are, negative in nature. So we're going to look primarily on this first point, which it has to do with the evaluation for various changes associated with the family unit. Okay, so Royce in general is like, we need to save the family unit. It's important. It's our first natural opportunity for loyalty. And so we don't want to change it in a way that throws like the good aspects out. We want to change it in ways that removes the evil and keeps the good. So how exactly do we do this? He says the way we do this, the way we can save the family unit is to train people to be loyal. So what exactly does this mean? We're going to train individuals and to think about families in a way that makes the family morally better off, and individuals, when they sort of move on with their lives, morally better off. And the way to do this is to have or at least one way of doing this is to have a better understanding of what real loyalty is. So really understanding what real loyalty is will impact changes in how we interact with our family members, our commitments, and this will allow us to keep what's good about the family and remove what's bad. Okay. The thing that Royce focuses on is we want to remove this negative association and misunderstanding associated with loyalty. Because if people think, family loyalty involves X, and X could be whatever. It involves me doing X or acting in this way or believing a certain thing. But I hate it. I can't stand it. It's detestable. It's a bad thing. Then you're going to say, forget loyalty altogether. There's no point in me being loyal to my family. There's no familial loyalty worth preserving. So if you have a misconception, a misunderstanding of what real loyalty involves, this is going to lead you, or at least according to Royce, to abandon your family ties, it's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It is throwing all the good out because there's some aspect that you don't like that Royce actually thinks is not a real part of loyalty. Okay. So what are these misunderstandings that lead us to abandon our family ties? The first one is that we, at least according to Royce, we understand loyalty as a kind of bond or to tradition or to convention that is forced upon us. And for Royce, he says, this is not real loyalty. These aspects of your relationship with family members, brothers, sisters, parents, where you have to just blindly and obediently serve some tradition or custom, this is not loyalty. This is just you being a sort of slave to tradition. And so you don't need to actually preserve this aspect of the family life. So mere obedience, being a slave to customs or familial traditions, This is not what being really loyal to your family is all about. So, what are some examples of this? One example would be the example Royce gives, arranged marriage. This would be a case where you're just sort of forced into some sort of tradition where you have to marry another individual, and it's just forced by either your parents or society or maybe even law. Remember that real loyalty for Royce has to be a willing devotion of a person to a cause. And so it can never be forced upon you. And so to say, well, this individual is not being loyal because they're not following this family tradition is inaccurate, according to Royce. He says that's not being loyal. That is just you being someone trying to force you into doing something and has nothing to do with real commitment. And as an individual, you might say, if loyalty involves this prearranged marriage, why am I committed to my family at all? I should abandon them altogether. Another example would be if you are expected or coerced into carrying on, let's say, the family business. So suppose your family has always been farmers, and your parents expect you to be farmers. You are not being disloyal to them. You are not giving up on your family if you choose not to be a farmer, because loyalty, again, has to be willingly accepted. And the coerced traditions or a coerced profession is not a real aspect of loyalty because it has to be willing. So you might, again, an individual might say, if loyalty, being loyal to my family members involves being a farmer, having to take on this for this profession, that this profession is being forced upon me, then you might say to yourself, well, all loyalty is worthless. I might as well give up on the family altogether. All these examples, though, are kind of extreme. Arranged marriages, forced professions, but you can think of many simpler, more mundane aspects where Royce would say that when you break them or don't agree with them or don't follow them, this is not an instance of you being disloyal. And so you shouldn't associate these forced conventions or traditions with real loyalty. You don't need to follow those, and it's not unethical for you not to want to be in an arranged marriage or not for you to be a farmer. There's still this real aspect of loyalty, a commitment to your family that you can preserve while maintaining a distance from these conventions. So it's just some simple ones I might think of. If you have some kind of family tradition that you find, let's say, morally objectionable or you don't particularly like, let's say you're a vegetarian and your family always eats turkey on Thanksgiving, you are not being disloyal by refraining from eating turkey on Thanksgiving. Maybe some gender norms you might reject. This is by not following those gender norms that are hoisted upon you, you are not being disloyal. You shouldn't associate loyalty with these coerced or forced or traditions or customs. So if you have a gender norm like, well, the male child needs to do the yard work and the female child needs to tend to the babies or clean the house. This is, if you reject this and say, no, I want to do the yard work or I want to tend to the children, doing this is not being unfaithful or disloyal to your family, because these conventions or traditions are forced upon you. And again, loyalty has to be freely chosen. Okay, so the first one is that real loyalty has to be freely chosen. And so any conventions, customs that are pushed upon you are not, when you reject them, are not acts of disloyalty. Another point worth making, I think, is that loyalty is not a relation between individuals. It's not that, and this is a point Royce makes in his first lecture, when I am loyal to something, it is to a cause or a purpose or an ideal. It is to something I'm trying to establish or make real. And so I can't actually be loyal to an entity that exists. That loyalty that we say that we have towards other individuals is a result of having some kind of shared cause. So I might be have loyalty to the development of my child. That is not loyalty to my child themselves. It's loyalty to them by way of being loyal to a cause. So you can of course, be bound to other individuals as like members of a shared cause. So if the family is all committed to the development of the family or the continuing health or the continuing moral growth of the family, then each member of the family is kind of a shared agent of loyalty. So you can have a some kind of union between family members or commitment to some aspect of a person. But for Royce, we shouldn't understand loyalty as loyal to an individual or an existent thing. So, one consequence of all of this, the fact that we have this tie to other individuals in virtue of being loyal to causes, is that Royce says you should never, he doesn't say never, he says you should not give up on a family member who you're united with in a common cause simply because you don't like them or grow tired of them. One of the reasons he says this is because once you become committed to a cause that involves another individual. So let's say you and I are committed to your continued education and you're committed to it as well. I'm committed to it. He says that you can never abandon that. He says you should not abandon that cause unless, one, you realize the cause is evil, or two, you find some greater cause that is so good it would offset the act of disloyalty, or that is the act of breaking from you with our shared cause to pursue a different cause. So Royce says that we have a commitment to our family. We have a commitment to the individuals that are in it insofar as we have a shared cause. And we have to be committed to them. We shouldn't give up on that uncle that we don't like or that brother that we don't like unless there is some cause unless we see that being committed to our brother, the cause that we're committed to with respect to him, involves some amount of evil or disloyalty. Or we find some way greater cause that would offset the act of disloyalty to them. So we might not like our brother. We might dislike them. But that doesn't mean we can break from them or give up our ties to them, because once we've engaged in this act of loyalty towards, let's say, the growth of the family, we have to maintain this commitment to it. Because if we were simply to break off from it just because we wanted to, not because there's some greater cause, then we would be decreasing the overall amount of loyalty in the world. And this, for Royce, would be morally wrong because we have the moral obligation to increase loyalty in the world. So let's look at another example. Let's say you simplify things a little bit. You're loyal to your family's welfare, so their health, their happiness. This is something you work towards. All the members of the family are also committed to this. Well, you shouldn't give up on that brother just because he's a jerk unless you can find this greater cause to be committed to. Simply giving up on your brother because he's engaging in dumb behavior or maybe is having issues or is mean to you, Royce would say it would be immoral. You could abandon your family for this much greater cause, but you have to take into account the fact that once you abandon your family, the effect on them is to create a model of disloyalty, which is a kind of moral evil. Here's another example. Let's say you have a married couple and they get divorced and they have a child. One individual might say, well, I'm no longer married to this individual, so I have no commitments to them. We're divorced. I don't owe you anything anymore. I don't need to be loyal to you in any way, shape, or form. For Royce, again, this is a misconception. You are not loyal to individuals. You're loyal to causes, purposes, ideals. So to say that I'm not loyal to another individual, for Royce, doesn't make any sense. And so let's say this individual tech who is now divorced was at one point moral to the family's development. For Royce, he is still morally obligated to that family development unless he can find a cause that is even greater, or he realizes that the commitment to the development of the family is actually an evil cause. It decreases loyalty in the world. So he doesn't have to like his ex-wife. He doesn't have to care for her. He can actually avoid her, or doesn't need to be polite. He can definitely doesn't need to love her anymore. But he's still bound to that family's development until he can find a other cause to be loyal to. And in addition, he might have some causes that require certain kindness to her because he's committed to, let's say, the development of his child. This is some cause he's loyal to. And so that might require some cordiality on his part to his ex-wife. So just because we aren't interacting or not bound in marriage with another individual or we dislike them doesn't mean we can be disloyal to some cause that unites us together with them. So I think it's interesting to think about. Royce is not as particular as I was here in terms of examples. He speaks at a real abstract level. But I think it's worthwhile to think about what are some ways that you have noticed that the family unit has changed in some way. Like if you think about from what you've heard or what your parents tell you or what your grandparents tell you, what was family like back in the 1960s or earlier, and how is it different now? And if you want, like what ways do you think the family life has changed? In addition, I'm kind of interested to know if Royce is actually right about this. That is, if people understood what real enlightened Roycean loyalty was all about, what would this actually do to the dynamics of the family? For me, it's kind of speculative. I think it would definitely lead to more flourishing family interactions, but I also think that tradition is pretty hardwired, and it would also involve maybe individuals, children, parents, just breaking from lots of conventions that are there. And so it could create more hostility. But I'd be interested to know what you think. So let's quickly look at the other major opportunity that Royce says is where we can find loyalty, and that is in politics and social organizations. So there's many examples of these organizations that give you an opportunity to fuse your self-will with some external opportunity. That is, gives you an opportunity for loyalty. These could be reform movements, trade unions, religious sects or religious groups, some kind of partisan organization like an ideological think tank. You can join a group of individuals and they're interested in investigating certain ideas that have political impact. You could join a political party, the Democrat Party, the Republican, the Green Party, and kind of work towards getting candidates elected or working towards establishing certain policies. Volunteer organizations, this is, of course, a great opportunity for loyalty that seems in 99.9% of cases to provide some net benefit. Social welfare groups, so you're kind of focused, maybe part of a political organization that work towards dealing with people that need assistance. And sports teams. You could also, another example that I didn't really think about when I wrote this slide would be like a parent-teacher organization where you're committed towards the development of children in an elementary school and you work towards raising money for books or supplies. Okay, so Royce says that most of these organizations tend to instruct individuals in the wrong type of loyalty. So there's an emphasis on loyalty. They might say, oh, we need our members to be loyal, but a lot of them focus on the wrong type of loyalty. And insofar as they do this, they create a bad association between loyalty and daily life. So the thought process then is people need this enlightened form of Roycean loyalty in order to be more moral, in order for these organizations to flourish. So what is this bad type of loyalty that is emphasized that he says? He says the problems with many of these organizations is they focus on this kind of loyalty. An loyalty that emphasizes strict allegiance and that is beneficial to a particular group. And this benefit is often at the expense of other groups. So they're focused on getting individuals to follow certain rules that benefit the members of that group with some disregard for larger humanity. Okay, what would be some examples? Royce's examples focus on labor unions. And so you could think about a labor union, a group of workers, let's say a teachers union, like a group of teachers, or steel workers union, everybody's like that works in the steel industry, or construction workers, and they aim to promote the welfare and of the workers involved. So they maybe aim to raise teacher salaries or reduce costs or reduce class size or something like that for teachers. And so Royce says that these labor unions sometimes can emphasize the wrong type of loyalty because their focus is primarily on that particular group, and they ignore any larger obligations they have to humanity or the environment or to economic sustainability. Their sole focus is on how do we advance our particular goals for our particular group, and it doesn't really matter if the impacts on other individuals. It's purely a selfish motive, according to Royce. Royce is not saying all labor unions are completely selfish and they're immoral, but they tend to dissuade members from thinking about the larger ethical implications of their actions. Another example would be like a corporate or company. It aims to, let's say, has loyalty to its shareholders, people that own parts of the company, and they encourage actions and behaviors that increase the profits of shareholders, and they disregard obligations they might have towards others. They sort of dissuade actions by employees that aren't directed towards this particular cause, but maybe take into account a larger cause. So they might say, this particular action that the company is doing is unethical. It actually decreases loyalty, and so I should engage in this action that is against the company's interests, against profits, because it's, let's say, the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, in that it would increase loyalty in the world for Royce. So again, just like the family unit, if you have a idea of loyalty that is incorrect or self-interested, or as I kind of put it, focused on strict allegiance to a particular group at the expense of another group, you rightfully so would say, loyalty is a bad thing. This is not something that we should encourage in society, and we should not encourage in social political organizations. So you might have this reaction to get rid of it. And in particular, you might say, well, loyalty looks like a tool to like oppress the dumb masses. It's a tool for conflict. It's a tool for controlling other individuals. And so what we really need in order to benefit society as a whole is less loyalty. We need more individuals that are more individualistic and are focused on their own self-interest, and fewer individuals that are focused on promoting these kind of causes of the labor union or the corporation. Royce rejects this idea. He thinks it's not the right conclusion to draw. It's not the case that we need less loyalty. What we need is less of the wrong type of loyalty. He thinks that we need actually more of the right type of loyalty, and more of the right type of loyalty is, yes, you've guessed it, this loyalty to that Royce articulates as the willing and thoroughgoing and practical service to a cause, and the moral commitment that is entailed by that, which is you have an obligation to increase loyalty in the world. In short, he thinks that we need less of this wrong type of loyalty, and less of the wrong type of loyalty that involves not real loyalty for him, but the promotion of a particular sector, class, or group. We have to focus on increasing loyalty for everyone, not increasing loyalty just for a small group. So let me give you a quick example of how this might be applied. You have a company, and let's say the company is really interested again in the profits of the company. Its loyalty is to its shareholders. And so, it says, we do some shady stuff here at our company. And so what we need to do is adjust the laws such that none of our employees might inform regulators or lawmakers or the police that we're doing this shady stuff. So we're going to build into contracts, and we are going to set up a company and petition lawmakers such that it's hard to report on our activities. If you report on us for doing these illegal things, you'll go to jail. And so this is on the one hand, loyalty to their particular group, their particular cause, which is increasing profits. But it is definitely at the expense of the loyalty of larger humanity. It is unethical in the sense that the workers at the company might say, yes, I have a commitment to the shareholders. Yes, I have a commitment to developing my company, but I also have a larger, more encompassing commitment to be loyal to loyalty, to be concerned about like the environmental impacts on individuals or the health impact on individuals that are not a part of this company. I have those commitments as well as my commitment to the company. And so this particular action of creating a kind of loyalty that's focused on a particular group and that ignores this broader commitment that you have to humanity as a whole, Royce would say is unethical and definitely needs to be changed. So concretely, we should fix whistleblower laws, especially those that where the individual is reporting on an action that not simply is criminal, but is harmful to people in any kind of way. Okay, so the question I would have for this is, do you think political or social organizations actually use the term loyalty in the negative way that Royce suggests? So Royce, again, is suggesting, well, the company or the labor union is saying, we need these loyal members. But Royce is saying, you're using loyalty in the wrong way. You're using it in the sense of focus on our particular cause. Don't focus on like increasing loyalty for humanity. Your loyalty should be circumscribed or put in a box and only benefit our group, not humanity as a whole. And if you have some examples of this, I would be interested in hearing them. And then the other kind of question I have is Royce proposes that we need more of the right type of loyalty and not less loyalty. So one reaction, again, is that if you see, oh, look at all these people who are just following the political groups or the rules of the corporate life, they're loyal to these entities. And so they're just mindless drones that have been controlled. And this notion of loyalty is used to control them. And so we need to get rid of loyalty altogether. Royce says in response, no, we actually need more loyalty, and we need more of the right type of loyalty. We need loyalty to, let's say, humanity at large, not loyalty to a particular group. So the question would be, what do you think if we were to take this to heart, that we should encourage individuals not simply to increase loyalty for their company, but also increase loyalty for humanity, loyalty to loyalty? How would this look in terms of the changing political or social landscape?